What's up, YouTube family? It's your boy S.Craft Blends back again with another barber tutorial, and today we are going to do a shadow fade with a 1.5 blade on top. Before I start cutting this top down with the 1.5 blade, I always comb with the waves. I comb with the grain to make sure we get all the loose hairs standing up nicely so we can cut through it and get a good even texture. So right now, once again, I'm using my Oster Octanes with a 1.5 blade just to knock that top down. And I like to make a few passes over each area just to make sure that I get all the little loose hairs. I'll come back later and clean those up, just kind of freehand that. But I like to knock out as much work as possible with the 1.5 blade. I usually always use a 1.5 blade on waves unless they ask for something different. That's my go-to blade for waves. Now I'm doing a number 1 open, and I'm going with the grain down in the fade area coming off of that parietal ridge. Now I will be doing a fade down technique on this haircut, and many people kind of get confused about the fade down technique simply because they don't have guidelines to guide them where they should fade at. So now that I went down with a 1 open and then a 1 closed, and then I went to a 0 closed, open and closed, going with the grain. Now I put the 1 on, open it up, or actually closed it first and made my initial guideline, and then I opened it up, and now fading into the hair I've already faded down on. And the fade down technique just gives me a nice clean canvas to fade into, makes it really easy to get this fade looking blurry, cuts down a lot of work. So there again, anytime I'm doing a wave cut, I always like, especially if I'm fading the side, I like to fade down first and then I'll fade back up. So the question being, how do you do a fade down technique when you don't create guidelines? Well, you have to know where you want the fade to be. So I know that if I was creating guidelines, I would put my first initial guideline right at the corner of that C-cup area all the way around the head. So, and that's where I would take my shadow up to. So right now I'm doing the shadow fade portion. On the side, I already did the 1 open, the 1 closed, then I did the 0 open and 0 closed to knock out that line. Now I'm coming in with that half. I'll show you more in just a second, or that open blade, and I'm just, going right up to the guideline that I had established, and then I'll just flick out any dark spots that I see with the corner of the blade, making sure that, we really go over the bottom well in different angles. To make sure that's nice and clean. So once again, I have my 0 guard on there, and I'll open it first and tap at it, and if I need to close it to knock that line out better, that's what I'll do. So there again, when it comes to fading down and not using the guidelines, you have to know basically where everything is going to be at, where the 1 should be at, where the 0 should be at, where the half should be at. And that's something that you should know already. Now we're lining him up. Obviously you can see he's very light in that corner right above the C-cup where I'm at. So I still see a little peach fuzz there. So instead of taking it way up, I'm actually just trying to keep that original hairline. I'm lightly touching that area. However, I know that I'll come back in and strengthen that area up with some color enhancement and some hair fibers to give it that nice, sharp, crispy lineup. As you can see, he wanted the points on the pointed sideburns on the side, so we're hooking that up for him. And right now I'm using my Andis T outliners, cordless T outliners, to line them up. Many people ask what I like better, those or the Babyless. Honestly, my go-to are always the Babyless trimmers, but I'll grab whatever's near. I like to have all my stuff hitting pretty nice. So once again, in this area, I'll go ahead and hit the 1, and the reason I'm going up right now is simply because of the way his hair growth goes. I was kind of fading or going with the grain, but the grain was kind of spinning. And I know that it's very easy, to cut into that calic area. And sometimes I accidentally do. I kind of hit that calic area a little bit, but I know that I can blend it into the top like right now. So I'm cool with that. So once I did the 1 with the grain, the 0 with the grain, now I'm coming back up, and I believe I skipped the 1 and I just went ahead and went straight to the 0 close to kind of give me that guideline that flows around with the rest of the guidelines that I already created to kind of stay in that same dark fade area that's on the side of the head. So I'll just keep working. Obviously, whenever you're dealing with heads, texture's different. There's so many different things about a head that you just have to try to learn to flow with. So for me, as you can see, I'll go to the back and I'll constantly turn the chair back and forth, and I'll look at different angles of the head to make sure the side of the fade is tying into the back of the fade. And right now, as you can see, and you'll see better here in just a moment, he had some dry patches and some discoloration of the skin on the back of his head, more so than the side of his head. So that also plays a factor in me trying to give him a nice fade, trying to see past the discoloration and the dry skin to make sure the fade is consistent all the way around. So sometimes I'll just have to comb through it and see where the hair is at, where the dark spots are at. Is that dark hair that I'm leaving, or is that just dark skin that I really can't do anything about? Sometimes, putting a little moisturizer on there or even spraying it with some water or alcohol can help to take the white skin or that discoloration off so you can see better. But I'll just constantly keep working to, there again, see if that's discoloration, if it's dry skin, or if it's hair. And if it's hair, I want to make sure that it is consistent with the rest of the fade. So once again, after I went with the grain, with the 1 and the 0, open and close, both of them, then I went up with the 0, open and close, and then also with the number 1 into that, just kind of moving it around to find the best that I can do. There again, there's a dark spot, so I have my 0 guard on there, and I'm just tapping away at that. And it's challenging with those spots in there, but you got to do what you got to do and keep working on it until it starts coming together. Obviously, I took the guards off, opened up the blade to give that shadow fade effect, and I just cut from the bottom up into that 0 closed. There again, turning the head from back and forth and looking from different angles, I see that back wasn't tying into the side of the fade like I wanted it to. So I'll just keep spinning and looking and checking from different angles and different light. And what I found is whenever I'm trying to tie in that back fade to the side fade, always in this little corner, between the back and the side, it's challenging at times to tie those together. So I just keep turning the chair back and forth, looking at that spot from different angles, and it really helps me to judge how everything is tying together. And I'll just keep going back, and I touch up spots that need to be touched up. And why did I grab the 0 guard? Because in that area is where I'm using the 0 guard, right? So there again, I really don't need guidelines. I just know what should be where. So I know where I want my 1 at, I know where I want my 0 guard at, and then I know where I want my open blade at. And once you know those things, then you can have guidelines in your mind that you do not really need to see on the head, if that makes sense. Obviously, I came back in, lined up the back, and whenever I was wrapping up this video, I totally forgot to taper in the back. So once I turned the video off, I tapered out the back and cleaned up his neck. So once I show you the final product, just know that the back wasn't tapered out. I had to do that after the video was over. So here we go again. going with the grain with my number 1 guard open, and then I'll drop a little lower and close it. And see, that's where I want to keep that number 1. So being we have a 1.5 on top, right around that parietal ridge area and a little bit lower, I'll do the 1 open and the 1 closed. Then I went to my 0 guard and hit that, and now I'm coming in just with an open blade. Sometimes I'll do this, sometimes I won't, but right now you can't really see the position of the clipper from this angle, but I'm not just laying it flat even though it may look like it. I have the blade almost in a raking motion going down, because whenever it's in that raking motion where the teeth are on the head, not the whole blade, it leaves the hair a little bit longer. And then if I need to, lay it a little flatter, I can do that to adjust that length. So once I got the hair cleaned up, going through the same process, I'm taking that 1 open all the way up into, kind of around that parietal ridge area where I went with the 1 closed with the grain, and then I just worked my way up. Why did I go back down again? Because as I'm pushing the hair up with the guard, as you can see, it's not laying as flat as I want it to. So I'll comb through it, and then I might go down against the grain again just to clean that area up a little bit more. I dropped down a little bit, and I went into the 0 open, 0 closed, then I popped that off. Now I'm doing the half again, and I clean really good up underneath, but once I start getting close to that 0 closed guideline, then I'll go ahead and start tapping more with the corners but for me, the reason I do the fade down technique for the most part is because whenever I was younger, I would always fade from the bottom up, and there would be times at the end where the customer would say, hey, can you cut some off the top? And for whatever reason, once I cut the top, it threw the whole fade off. I don't know why, but I was like, man, how can I alleviate this? So I started cutting the top first, and then I just worked my way down from there, and it just works for me. But you have to do what works for you. So there again, now that I kind of went through all my steps, I'll put my 0 guard on, and I'll just start touching things. And if I need to put the 1 on and move up a little higher, I'll do that. But I'm just working at these different spots, trying to discern there again, is this a dark spot? Is this dark hair? And then I have to adjust whether I'm putting on my guard or taking off my guard, and if I see dark spots up in the area where there would be a 0 guard or a 1 guard, I may still like you see, just kind of use the corners of my blade without the guard on and just tap in those dark spots. Ultimately, I'm just trying to remove dark spots. Now we're going to go ahead and line up this side. There again, he's got, a lighter corner there, but I know that if I keep that, I can put the color enhancement and hair fibers on there and really strengthen that up. Also, whenever I use color enhancement, I like to clean the surface off really good before I spray it down with alcohol. As you can see too, I kind of spray it with alcohol. I didn't really show the wiping down process that I do, and then I brush the hair down. Sometimes I'll spray a little hairspray on there also, just to be able to brush those hairs down and get them nice. So I start off in the middle whenever I do my lineup, and then I work my way to the outside. I like to start in the middle because usually the middle is where it's the lowest point, and then I work my way around. And now I spray a little hairspray on after some color enhancement. Then I put on my hair fibers. I spray hairspray over the fibers again. Sometimes I used to let it dry, but then I found it was harder to get off. So instead of letting it dry, now I try to jump in while it's still wet, so that I can cut through that. But I keep a towel handy so I can constantly wipe the hairspray and fibers off of my blades so they don't get gunked up and they stay hidden. So right now, just there again, after I sprayed the hairspray and hair fibers and color enhancement and all that, which I always lay the color enhancement first and then I put my fibers on, but then I came in and just lined up where I already had it lined, but it just made that line look, you know, thicker. He had some receding areas on the side that he wanted to really, you know, sharpen up and get that nice clean sharp line. Then obviously you saw I would just come in with a fade blade, and I freehand the top, resting the middle of the blade, not the tip of the blade because we don't want to dig into the waves, but I just rest the middle of the blade lightly on the head and kind of float across the head, knocking off loose hairs. Now I'm coming in just to give it that old crispy line up, hitting it with the blade. Many people ask, do I zero gap my blades? Absolutely, I zero gap everything, but either way you're still going to come in with the blade. But here's the finished product. Don't mind the dry skin and the dark spots, but that's a blurry fade, y'all. Hey, anyways, it was good to be with you guys. God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.